Thank you. Latinos for Trump, that's what I like. I love that. Latinos! We're doing well with the Latinos. Nobody knows about it yet. We're bringing so many jobs in. You watch what happens. The Hispanics, we love the Hispanics. Thank you, everybody. So I said to my people, what the hell are you doing? Who's going to come tonight? You have San Francisco playing the game tonight. And look at this crowd. This is unbelievable. Well, we'll speak a little bit faster tonight so you go home to the game, okay? No. Let's take our time. Anyway. Well, thank you all very much. It's been an amazing period of time. You know, you had the 1237, right? 1,237 delegates, and I promised everybody, I told everybody we were going to hit that number, and now we're going to hit a number that's way, way above, way, way above. Remember, they all said, oh, you have the convention, and the convention's going to be a big deal, and I said, we're not going to the convention for that. We're going to the convention as victors before the convention ever starts. So we're going to have a great time in Ohio. We're going to have a great time in Cleveland, Ohio. And I really appreciate this turnout. This is fantastic. I really do. So on Tuesday, you got a big vote coming up. I mean, honestly, we already won. But in terms of mandate, in terms of going out there and really getting it, I hope you can go out, vote. And you know, we have a few states, right? It's the end. It's the end. Now, here's what's important. In the history of the Republican Party, Dwight D. Eisenhower, Ronald Reagan, everybody. In history, we have the most votes ever cast for a Republican candidate. Never happened before. And by millions of votes. And the amazing thing about that is, I think we do even better in November because we're going to take a lot of people from the Democrats. You know, Bernie Sanders, the system was rigged on him. I think we're going to get a lot of people from Bernie. We'll see what happens. I mean, I watched Hillary today. It was pathetic. It was pathetic. It was so sad to watch. And, you know, she's up there and supposed to be a foreign policy speech. It was a political speech. Had nothing to do with foreign policy. She made a political speech tonight, folks, and it was a pretty pathetic deal. But listen, on Tuesday, so we have California, we have Montana, we have New Jersey, we have New Mexico, we have South Dakota. So we have those states, and that's the end. And at the end of the night, we will be many, many, many millions of votes ahead of the highest vote getter in history. And that tells you something. Now, you're a hell of a crowd. You don't like basketball very much. You are a great crowd. Bad. Thank you. I love you. I love you. I love you, folks. I'm telling you. So, we are in a movement. They've never seen anything like it. Some people, many people, even people that hate me, the pundits, who are totally dishonest, by the way, but that's okay. Some of these pundits have even said, almost all of them, that there's never been anything like this that's ever happened in the United States. Never been. Amazing. Yesterday, we had an amazing crowd. We had these airport hangars packed with people. And a friend of mine said, I loved your speech yesterday. You know, it's on all the networks. It's all over the place. He said, were there any people there? I said, yeah, it could have been like 20,000 people. I couldn't tell. They never show the people. They never, ever show it. But who cares? Do we agree? Who cares? People are getting it. People are getting the idea. People are getting the idea. So what we have to do is this. We have a movement going on. We're on the cover of every newspaper, every magazine, Time magazine many times. I just learned they're doing yet another cover on Trump. I love that. You know, Time magazine's a good magazine. You grow up reading Time magazine. Whoever thought you'd be on the cover of Time magazine, especially so much? And it's all about the movement. It's all about the fact that we're taking back our country. And by the way, we're going to be very inclusive to everybody. We're going to be very inclusive to everybody. I know we have a lot of people, they're angry at what's happened. We have a lot of smart people that are making less money now than they did 18 years ago, and they're working twice as hard, okay? We are going to bring our jobs back, folks. We're going to bring back sanity to our country. We're going to bring those jobs back. And we're not going to let the jobs go so easy. You know, I talk all the time about Ford and Carrier and Nabisco, where they leave and they move their plants to Mexico and other places. And there's no consequence. There's going to be a big consequence. Let me give you an example, okay? It's so easy. For 6 years, I've been watching politicians saying, we have to stop the onslaught of people leaving, of companies leaving our country. I've been watching this in amazement. I never thought I was going to be doing this. Have I done a good job? Okay? Have I done a good job? You know, it was funny, before I get there. So I've been doing this now for 10 months. And they had an article, one of the magazines, said it was 10 months versus 200 and some odd 100 years of experience. Because we ran against 17 people, and if you add up all of their tenure, it's 200 and something years. So for 10 months, with no experience, we are doing well, folks, I'll tell you. But don't let the no experience fool you. I've been on the other side of the equation. I hate to tell you this. I was very much a part of the establishment. I was a big donor, and I was on the other side. But I know the system better than anybody else because I know how it works on both sides. I've been there so long. I know so much about lobbyists and special interests or whatever the hell you want. And with me, you're getting me. I'm representing just you. Just you. So, in the primaries, I spent $55 million of my money. And in fact, somebody said, I guess for legal purposes, they put it down as a loan, where I loaned myself $55 million. I will say to you tonight, I've been saying it all the time, I'm going to determine, I don't even want it as a loan. I don't even know why. When somebody does it, they always put it down as a loan. I'm not paying myself back. We're wiping out that loan. I'm in for $55 million. I turned down, and it always was intended to be that way. Sometimes the lawyers do things you say, why are you doing that? They almost can't explain it. But it seems that many people do that. But we're terminating that. Millions and millions of dollars was offered to me, and I said, no, I'm not interested in it. Now what we're doing is we're working with the Republican National Committee. They have treated me fairly, by the way, or I guess I wouldn't be here. Yeah, I think I would have been no matter what, because frankly, we won by such landslides that no matter what they wanted to do, right? We won so big, no matter what they wanted to do. You know, I tell the story all the time about the prize fighters. They go out and they fight in somebody's home territory. And I know so many of the prize fighters. I have a lot of prize fights. I've always liked it. I've held many. More Mike Tyson fights than anybody else. But I've had a lot of fights. And I'll say, why are you going to that community? A lot of money there, Mr. Trump, a lot of money. But if you come to a judge's call, they're going to rule against you if it's a close fight. Not even if it's a close fight. They're going to rule against you, period. They said, there's only one way to solve that, Mr. Trump. I got to knock him out. And that's what we did. That's what we did. Because it's a rigged system. It wasn't meant for me to win. The system isn't set up like that. But we won in New Hampshire so big. I love New Hampshire. We're going to solve they have a tremendous drug problem, heroin, in New Hampshire. We're going to solve that problem. We are going to solve the problem that's coming in from the southern border. We want to solve the drugs that are pouring in to our country. We're going to solve it, okay? We're going to solve it. But we won New Hampshire. We're going to build that wall. Don't even think about it. Don't even think about it. And who's going to pay for the wall? Who? 100% right, okay? 100%. You know, I was watching, coming in, I have the television, and I'm watching, and one of the shows had, a poll came out. And I like the poll because I'm doing very well. And in some of the polls now, I'm beating Hillary Clinton, and quite easily. We love that. We love it. Fox had a very good poll, came out a couple of days ago. We're number one, and we're right around. That's, believe me, folks. When you watched her today, she does not look presidential. That I can tell you. She does not. This is not a president. 4 more years of this stuff, and I'll tell you, we're not going to have a country left, believe me. And if I win, believe me, make America great again, and it's going to be greater than ever before. We have a chance to be greater than ever before. Greater than ever before. But a poll came out, and it said, do you think Trump is going to build the wall? These people just don't understand. Remember when I first announced, they said, do you think Trump is serious? And the pundits would say, well, he's not going to run. And then if he runs, so then I announced I was running. But if he runs, he's only going to have fun for a couple of weeks, build up his brand, my brand. I get killed. I had such a beautiful brand. I get killed with my brand with this stuff. You know why? If you get 55%, you have a landslide. That means that 45% of the people hate you. In the old days, I had 100% of the people that loved me. Now I have 55% of the people that love me, but really more than that. If you look at the last, oh, that's okay, don't worry about it. He's very quiet. Let him enjoy himself. I want him to enjoy. We need our protesters. I love my, no, leave him alone. Leave him. That's okay. It's all right. That's all right. Now leave him alone. We got to be nice. Don't forget, the only one I hear are you people. I don't hear him. All right. Don't hurt him. See the way I say that? I've learned. Don't hurt him. Don't hurt him, please. No, he's fine. I would have left him here because he was fine. But here, wow, look at all the people that are forming back there. This is crazy. Man. It is true, though. I said, where the hell? These people are going to be at the game. I don't know how many people are at the game, but this is better. Is this more fun than the basketball game? And you know what's more importantly? Honestly, it's a lot more productive. And I like basketball and all of that. This is about America first. This is about putting our country first. It's about showing people that we're not going to be listening to stupid people anymore, that we're not going to have people making deals like the Iran deal, like the Sergeant Bergdahl deal. They get, I mean, think of it. They get 5 of the people that they've wanted for 8 years, and we get Sergeant Bergdahl, a traitor, where 5 people were killed looking for him. These are the deals, the 5-for-1. I call him the 5-for-1 president. So we're not going to do that stuff anymore, folks. Those days are over. The days of the Iran deal where they get $150 billion, we get nothing in that deal, nothing, except laughed at and scorned. And then I watch Hillary Clinton. She started the foundation of that deal, and now she's proud of it. But she's only proud of it for one reason. You know why? Because Obama wants it. Anything Obama wants, she's going forward with. Because you know why? She doesn't want to go to jail. That's why, folks. That's why. Remember, Hillary Clinton used to hate Obama. She used to hate him. Bill Clinton hated him. Bill Clinton hated him. He called Bill Clinton a racist. Do you remember that? Bill Clinton hated him. And Hillary Clinton hated Obama. Now it's, yes, sir, Mr. President, sir. Yes, sir. What would you like? What would you like me to say here, sir? The only reason she's behaving like this, and the only reason she's been dragged so far left, believe me, is she doesn't want to go to jail over the emails, okay? Believe me, that's the only reason. One simple reason. Because you know what, folks? I used to say, leave it up to the lawyers. I have watched so many lawyers on so many different networks. I have read so much about the emails. Folks, honestly, she's guilty as hell. She's guilty as hell. And the fact that they even, and this is true, the fact that they even allow her to participate in this race is a disgrace to the United States. It's a disgrace to our nation. It's a disgrace. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. I don't know. I've always had great confidence in the FBI, I must tell you. I have great respect. I know some FBI folks. I've always had great confidence in them. I can't believe that they would let this go. When you look at General Petraeus, he got the equivalent of 2 years. He did nothing compared to her. You look at some of these other people, their lives have been destroyed. What she did is 20 times worse, what she did. And now her guys are taking the Fifth Amendment, the whole thing, it's a mess. And she keeps running like there's nothing, no problem. I'm telling you, there's a great system we have. We have a great country. We're going to make it a lot greater, by the way. But we have a great, we love our country. Look, we love our country. And I don't believe our country can let her get away with this crime. I don't believe it. So we'll see. And you know what? If they do let her get away with it, it will be a big topic of conversation on the campaign trail. I can tell you that, folks. And then if I win, it's called a 5-year statute of limitations if I win. Now, everything's going to be fair, but I'm sure the Attorney General will take a very good look at it from a fair standpoint, okay? I'm sure. I think it's disgraceful. So we have a very important race. We're doing amazingly well. Some of the pundits are saying the most phenomenal thing they've ever seen in government. Newt Gingrich said the other night, there's never been anything like this, and he's a historian, a great historian. There's never been anything like this in the history of our country. We go like this crowd. We have great crowds, right? We always have great crowds. I mean, look at this place. Amazing. This is amazing. Hey, cameras, why don't you take a look at this, please, if you would. They don't turn. They don't turn. The other night, Crazy Bernie, he's a crazy guy, but he's doing okay. He is nuts. He is a total nut job, but you know what? He's doing okay. And by the way, he does get the second biggest audience is nothing like us, not even close. And everybody knows it. But here's the difference. So the other night, they said, ladies and gentlemen, Donald Trump, here's Donald Trump. I had like a tremendous, I don't know, close to 20,000 people. And this happens all the time. Ladies and gentlemen, Donald Trump is speaking now, and he's just finishing up, and blah, blah, blah. Then, when everyone leaves, they usually have somebody standing there. The place is empty. It looks like a garbage dump, all this, everything gone. And they'll say, Donald Trump just spoke, and blah, 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 and then let's all fall asleep. Okay. Then, they have Bernie Sanders. He had 3,000 people. Bernie Sanders had a tremendous crowd tonight of 3,000 people. Unbelievable crowd. And I'd have 20, and they don't mention it. Just like when I said to the cameras, turn around and show these people, even during this big game in this territory. It's amazing to me. I mean, this is, it's incredible. But, and honestly, even coming here, I said to my people, are you crazy to be having it at that location? It's a great honor. But look, we have to vote. We have to do a mandate. We have to win. And one of the biggest reasons we have to do this for, United States Supreme Court justices. I put a I put a very, very big list of great justices. Oh, that's okay. Will you behave? Where is he? Where is he? Where? That's all right. That's all right. Leave her. Let her stay. That's all right. She's got a little Bernie sign up. You know, it was given to her. Did Bernie give it to you himself? It's all right. Sad, actually. No, that's okay. Let her stay. There's no problem. I don't mind. I don't mind. You know, they send him in with the little Bernie sign made in China. You know, it's a little Bernie sign. It's a pretty sad thing. I mean, unfortunately, I was talking about the system. So the Republican system was rigged, but we won by knockouts. The Bernie system is totally rigged. They have superdelegates. Darling, there's no way he can win, but keep your sign hanging high, okay? There's no way. Which is a shame. Now, Bernie and I do agree on one thing. We agree that the United States is getting ripped off like crazy on trade. So on that, I agree. That's why I think a lot of the people are going to come to me when this is all over. The Bernie people are going to be voting for Trump because that's such a big thing. Our wealth is being drained out of us. It's being just taken like we're a bunch of dopes, This year, we have a trade deficit with China of $505 billion. We have a massive trade deficit with Vietnam, with Japan, with Mexico. You could name any country, virtually any country we deal with, we have a trade deficit. It used to be the other way around when we were smart and strong. But we haven't been smart and strong for many, many decades, and we're going to change that around, folks. We're going to change it around. We're going to change it around. Now, we have to change it around. We can't keep going like this. We can't. It's not like we have a choice. Oh, gee, let's go like this for another 25 years. If we're going to save our Social Security, and I'm the only one that's going to save it, believe me, without cuts, if we're going to save our Medicare, if we're going to save all of these things that we have to save, we have to bring our jobs back, and we have to make sure that nobody's taking our jobs anymore, folks. And we're going to do that. We're going to do it. So, remember a couple of things. Hillary Clinton wants to abolish the Second Amendment. She wants to abolish it. Abolish it. The NRA, National Rifle Association, last week endorsed Donald Trump. I believe it's the earliest endorsement they've ever given to a presidential candidate. And I give that credit to my sons. They've been members for a long time. So have I. But my sons are fantastic. And they really, and by the way, I have to say this. Wayne and Chris and all of the people that I've met at the NRA, these are great people. They're great Americans. They love the people of this country. They want the people of this country to be safe. These are great people. So I want to thank them for the endorsement. National Rifle Association. Okay, so let me go back for a second. So I said that Carrier, Nabisco, Ford, all these, they're all leaving. Here's what happens. Let's say that a company like Carrier announces they're going to leave. I'm going to say very simply, and it's going to be very, very strong and very, very simple. Folks, if you leave, here's the consequence. You're going to be taxed at the rate of 35% for every single air conditioning unit that you bring back into our country, okay? Okay? Very simple. Now, I've been watching politicians in Washington for 7 years trying to figure out how to stop companies from leaving. They're all leaving. You know, I shouldn't do it because I'll ruin your night, but I have stats on San Jose. Not good. Not good. You're losing your manufacturing. 1 in 3 manufacturing jobs lost. Hillary ran up a $1 trillion trade deficit with China while she was Secretary of State. So many different things. Since Clinton, Bill Clinton signed NAFTA, probably the worst economic deal we've ever made in this country. Since then, California has lost 1 in 4 of its manufacturing jobs. I mean, I could go on, except it's statistics, folks, done by my statistician. He thinks it's the most exciting job in the world. I don't want to depress you, okay? But it's just terrible. NAFTA was signed by Bill Clinton. It's probably the worst economic deal made by our country maybe ever. You look at New England, you look at upstate New York, you look at way out on the island in New York, the places have been wiped out. Pennsylvania, I love Pennsylvania. We're going to win Pennsylvania, by the way. We won all of these. You know, in the primaries, they said, well, we'll stop him right after New York. So we had Pennsylvania.
All right, guys, I'm going to cut out of this Trump rally replay and take you to a live shot at McDowell and 31st Avenue where a fatal crash has occurred. Fatal crash. Oops, looks like that is hurting your ears. Fatal crash, McDowell and 31st Avenue. Pedestrian versus vehicle. Sad situation out there. Mike Pace will be joining you in just a couple minutes.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Fox 10 News Now stream, part of Fox 10, Phoenix.com. Unfortunately, we are covering right now this fatal pedestrian versus car crash, and you can see just, wow, look at that car. Very, very smashed and dented live at 31st Avenue and McDowell. And look at that when we get a close-up shot there of that car. You can see the windshield. Half of it is just shattered. Very, very sad situation here this Friday afternoon. 11:02 now in Arizona. This is at 31st Avenue and McDowell. We don't know the specifics of what happened, but you know that the investigation is underway right now. Unfortunately, we do have a fatal crash. All right, folks, Sky Fox is now leaving the scene. Get you caught up on some other news. But first, our really top story here in Arizona is, unfortunately, this oppressive heat. Look at this. This is the Fox 10-day Foxcast. We are slated for 112 degrees today. And then Saturday, 114. Sunday, 113. And then we get a cool down trend, if you want to call it that. Monday, 110. And then, Tuesday with that 105, it's going to feel like beautiful 70 degrees probably by then. No, it's going to be a hot week coming up. But that's what you got to expect sometimes living here in Arizona. We know eventually that heat is going to come, and it's going to come with a vengeance sometimes. All right, folks, I'm going to get you caught up with some headlines from across the country right now. Welcome to the Fox 10 News Now stream, part of Fox10Phoenix.com. My name is Mike Pace. Happy to be here with you guys. 11:06 today. Let's see what we have slated on the show. I'm going to get you guys a little rundown of what's happening, and then we do know coming up at 1 o'clock when Samia is back, she's going to have a Donald Trump rally in California. In Northern California, Trump will be once again. You know, he was in San Jose yesterday. Samia just played you a little bit of that. But coming up, we should be getting Hillary Clinton, a Women for Hillary event in Culver City, California, and then also a daily briefing coming up at any moment, State Department briefing. That should be interesting. Let's see if we keep getting those questions from the media about, there's two situations they've been really covering the media this week at the State Department. And one, obviously, is the Hillary Clinton emails still. And then the two is this video that from the State Department about 2 years ago of this Iran press conference that they were having, and there's a little bit of controversy right now because portions of that clip have been deleted from the State Department briefing 2 years ago, so that is causing some controversy as well. And then Coming up at 2:30, there will be also a Bernie Sanders rally from Fairfield, California. We are just days away now from the California primary for Tuesday. So that is just your little schedule of things that are going to be coming up in the next moments here on the Fox 10 News Now stream. But let's get you caught up with some other headlines from across the country. In Louisiana, a second suspect faces murder charges over a shootout that killed 2 Southern University students at an off-campus party. Baton Rouge police said in a written statement today that 22-year-old Ernest Bernard Felton of Miami has been charged with second-degree murder and obstruction for the April 10th shooting that killed 19-year-old student Latasha Bennett and 19-year-old student Annette January. Felton was initially arrested on an attempted murder charge after police say he shot and wounded Henderson. Also charged with second-degree murder is 25-year-old Brandon Christopher Henderson of Baton Rouge. A police report says Henderson told investigators that he started the shootout, but police don't believe he fired the fatal shots. A Brazilian dancer who entered the country illegally has testified at a New York trial about her affair with a one-time top Drug Enforcement Administration official, a DEA official. Prosecutors say Polis failed to disclose the affair and his ownership in the New Jersey bikini bar where she danced when he filed those documents to maintain his top secret security clearance. Chicago Mayor Rahm Emanuel says there's a lot more work to do on transparency as the city publicly releases information about 100 cases of alleged police misconduct. Emanuel said in a statement that releasing the videos this morning was an important next step in the city's efforts to be more transparent with police issues. The Independent Police Review Authority released videos, audio recordings, police reports, and other materials. All the cases involve shootings by officers, use of stun guns resulting in great bodily injury or death, or in custody incidents where there was great bodily injury or death. In Boulder, Colorado, investigators have suspended a search at a Colorado ski resort, but are hoping DNA evidence will help them identify human remains found inside a snow boot there. A foot was found Wednesday inside a size 13 boot in a clearing at the Mountain Ski Resort. Teams spent 2 days scouring the area, including a horseback search of cross-country ski trails Thursday, but they don't plan to look again for clues until more snow does melt. Hard to believe there's snow anywhere when we are dealing with these temperatures here in Arizona. All right, folks, I do want to show you a little tower cam action right here, right now.
Yeah, but I started at the bottom.
Okay, while we do wait for some live events to come through, let's show you Hillary Clinton from yesterday.
For having us here and being with us here in Paris. I agree with Dr. There's no better place than Paris, California. This place has been sort of a reflection of things that are going on in the country. As the housing crisis hit pretty hard here. Many families, the infrastructure is not so developed, so many of the jobs that people have to go to, they have to drive very far to either San Diego or Los Angeles. I'm happy to see that we're finally building a Metro East station so folks can access those jobs. I bring this up because even before early childhood education, the first education happens in the home, right? And so the first teachers are the parents. And if you have parents who are struggling, working really hard, and not able to provide or don't even have the capacity to read books to their children or do that pre-learning that happens that's so necessary before preschool. How do they compete even when everyone is going to preschool? The other part, and then there's another into that is, you mentioned it, when we do get kids through school, college now seems unattainable to many of these kids. A lot of them are fearful of the debt that they might accrue. In some cases, many of our spaces are dwindling down. We're sought after as a country where kids from other countries come to get educated here. So our children are not just competing with each other, they're competing with children from all over the country and all over the world. And I bring this up because your experience as a First Lady of Arkansas, working with migrant workers, as a senator, and then also as a Secretary of State, you're obviously seeing the changing world. But it all has to kind of work here first. And how do we make our young people here competitive in the world that you see developing, in the world that you see we have to be competitive in?
That's a great question. Thank you, because I'm glad you combined children and competitiveness.
Right.
Because it's very clear if you look around the world, as I've had the privilege to do, if you are educating your children starting from those earliest days and months and preparing them for school, you will have a more competitive economy and you will be able to attract and keep more jobs. So let me just quickly kind of break down what you said, because you made a number of important points. First, as to infrastructure and mass transit, I did read that there's going to be a mass transit line coming here to Paris. That is great. Because you're absolutely right. We urge people to get jobs, but a lot of the jobs are pretty far away from where people are living, and that's not only costly to commute in dollars and time, but then it makes it more difficult to really have your family responsibilities met. So the more we can invest in mass transit, and I think California is a perfect example, because you have an understanding of what it's going to take. I know that, a lot of the big cities already have mass transit, so moving things down to a city like Paris really makes a great deal of sense. The other point you made, which I want to stress, I've done a lot of work in how we help parents understand they are their child's first teachers. And that in every way you can imagine, the family is the child's first school. When I was in Arkansas, we had a lot of really poor people back in the 1980s. And I was looking for a program we could afford that would help. And I found a program in Israel and brought it to Arkansas to work with mothers to help them do more to teach their own children. Because a lot of mothers and grandmothers who often are taking care of kids often feel if they themselves don't have a lot of education, they don't have a lot to contribute to their children, which is absolutely wrong. And we've got to really change that mindset. And so here's what I'm hoping to do, is to encourage more communities, including churches and faith-based groups, community groups, nonprofits, the school system, to really begin at the very start of a child's life. Reading, talking, and singing to your baby doesn't cost anything. You don't even have to buy a book. You can read the cereal, ingredients. Your child doesn't care. It's just, it's building that vocabulary, and we now know from brain research it will better prepare your child. And just talking and singing to your child. And it sounds so simple, but it's so profound. And I have helped to start programs up in the Bay Area and in some other places where we encourage doctors, when you have your baby checkups, to say, are you reading, talking, and singing to your baby? We've encouraged pastors to recruit the older women in the church to go visit young families and to talk about reading, talking, and singing. So thank you for raising that, because even if we get children into programs by the age of 2 or 3, Some children will be far ahead because their families have done this, and other children will be having to catch up. And we want every child to have the chance to enter school with their vocabulary and their excitement about learning. And then finally, it's absolutely true what you say. Because college has gotten so expensive, a lot of families just are saying they can't send their child. So I have a plan. So for 4-year public colleges and universities, you will not have to borrow a penny to pay tuition. And I don't offer free college to everybody. I figure if you can afford it, if you're a billionaire or a millionaire, if you can afford it, you should pay for it. But that's not true for most middle-class, working, and striving families. And I want to get back to where college is available and affordable for more young people. Come on, join us, Congresswoman. Come, we have a chair for you right here.
Hi, everybody. I'm sure you must know Congresswoman Maxine Waters.
She is a stalwart. She is on the front lines of working hard to make these changes. I can't wait to work with her as president, because one of the things we are going to do is get the cost of college down. And I heard just today that the legislature in California is going to limit the number of foreign students. I have to say I approve of that.
Yeah.
Because the reason it got higher and higher is because they paid the full cost. But we've got to get back to using public colleges and universities for what they were intended. If it's in California, for the children in California. If it's in New York, for the children in New York. And we've got to figure out.
You know, we forget that public higher ed is the public option.
Yes, it is.
And we need to make it the public option.
Right.
Reverend Kenny, Pastor Kenny Baker.
Madam Secretary, and I am truly elated. I'm trying not to be giddy, but I'm thankful. I am thankful to be at this table and privileged. I really appreciate you coming to Paris, the city of Paris. I represent a small church that has been in the community for 70 years. Bethel AME Church is located here on the outskirts, just on the outskirts, in that rural environment. So I pray that I can give them some justice in regards to efforts that we're striving to make in the community and on behalf of the community. Thank you for your concerns about daycare. That's where our hearts are. Thank you for your concerns even about moving forward in technology areas. My heart's desire, because of my engineering background, is really gravitating towards creating green, sustainable communities. So in that endeavor, it allows for us to do a lot more training and a lot more focused efforts on building the community from the ground up, so to speak. So if you would allow me the privilege to just give you some background for the sake of my folks, I'm trying to encourage some very discouraged families. There is a resilience among African Americans that has been demonstrated, that has demonstrated itself before our arrival to the American shores. That resilience has been exemplified throughout slavery and the determination of freedom for all on various levels. That same resilience has endured the old Jim Crow laws throughout varying levels of separate but equal principles. It is by the same resilience that our new Jim Crow laws and our efforts to establish integration has forged us to create a very diverse platform of people coming together politically, socially, economically, financially, and religiously. That resilience in a political platform alone has allowed for us to think so differently that we literally find ourselves on an island. The perspective I have of this is that we are more conservative than liberals would strive to label us. We are more liberal than conservatives would strive to label us. But in both of those areas of political definition, we spin the gamut on striving to be the most conservative of conservatives and the most liberal of liberals. So there is not a scuffle, scrimmage, battle, or war that we have not engaged in on virtually both sides or any issue since the inception of these United States. With all of that said, we are Americans, true to the bone. In that context, our segregated story has yet to be integrated into society under the guise of this new Jim Crow era. What is your philosophy and clarity on the possibility of standardizing the teaching of American history in a comprehensive context with the contribution of all of its people?
Well, Pastor, thank you for that eloquent statement.
Yes, sir.
And I can tell you're a pretty good preacher.
Yes, sir.
I think there's that old saying, those who don't know their history are condemned to repeat it. I agree with that. And it is so important that we do a better job of teaching all of our people, most particularly our children, but all of our people, of the diverse stories and history that we bring to this great country of ours. And no group of people should be cut out, ignored, or diminished, because their stories are just as important as somebody else's. Now, I think in September, the brand new African American Museum will be dedicated on the Mall in Washington, D.C. And so there will be a chance, finally, in a very visual way, to tell that story. But I believe that we are in danger of kind of forgetting a lot of our history. And I gave a speech this morning in San Diego pointing out a lot of what I thought were very wrong statements that Donald Trump has made about America, about American history, about how great we are, and how we have to work together, because that's where we achieve the most. So I think it's important for every community to feel that their stories are being heard, and that requires the community to be part of telling that story. And I urge you and your church, but I urge everyone to feel that you have a contribution to make. And look at, I mean, California is as big as a lot of countries in the world. So the stories are amazing. They're diverse. You have all kinds of struggles and triumphs, setbacks, and successes. And I think we have done our children a disservice by not really telling them the complete history. And so I would hope that we would all pay more attention to that. It's also important, I believe, for us to do a better job encouraging people to participate in the political system by teaching how our government works. The basic civics about how you get things done. And it is frustrating. And I understand why people get discouraged sometimes, because it seems so maddening that it takes a long time to get anything done, and sometimes you don't even get it done. But if you look at our history, actually our founders set it up that way, because they wanted separation of powers. They wanted 3 branches of government. So we would never have a dictator. We would never have a king. We would have judges and legislators and a president and a cabinet and others who would be doing their jobs, but they would have to be checked and balanced by somebody else. So I sometimes worry that we're not doing the job we need to in reaching out and telling all of our citizens. I run into people all the time who say, oh, I'm not voting, nothing ever changes. Well, you've just guaranteed nothing's going to change by saying you're not going to vote. And you've also guaranteed somebody you may disagree with, who has a legitimate point of view, but it's not yours, is going to be more successful because that person will show up and vote. So I think we've got some work to do. And I want to work with members of Congress and others to really tell this story about how our government works, how our political system works, what it means to keep a democracy working, and make sure everybody's history is respected. That's my goal.
Thank you, Madam Secretary.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Tanya Burke.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you.
First and foremost, I would like to thank you for being here in our city, our wonderful city of Paris. I also would like to make an honorable mention of our Mayor Pro Tem, Rita Rogers, who's also here. And our city manager, Richard Belmudis, is also here. He's really shy, but he's a really big fan of yours. And I told him I would make sure you knew that. And if you don't mind, and I don't want to be disrespectful, but as this evening progressed, I'm going to refer to you as Madam President.
Oh dear. Oh dear. No, that might be bad luck. That might be bad luck.
And see, and I was just about to say.
Call me Hillary instead.
Oftentimes people say that could be bad luck, but I was brought up on when you want something in life, you speak it, you act it, you talk it, you walk it, you speak it to existence. So I'm speaking you being president.
That's fair. That's fair.
Here in the city of Paris, we're one of those cities that often get overlooked. Yeah. We're that hidden gem, that diamond in the rough. We have rich diversity, rich culture, and a rich history here. Oftentimes, people are just coming through Paris and they're just breezing on through as they're going to San Diego or they're going to the wine country down in Temecula. But we have a lot of great things here in the city. We have a lot of great people here in the city. But we also have some challenges here in the city. We have high unemployment rate, we have a high poverty rate, and we have a low education rate. We have many of our residents don't often go get a college education past high school. And those are some of the things that's becoming a barrier for us moving forward as a city. You have talked a lot about the things that you're going to be doing overall throughout the country. But oftentimes we here in Paris, we get left out of that equation. What I would like to know is how will you start to focus on the smaller communities? Because we tend to get left out when you start talking about Los Angeles, San Francisco, Oakland, San Diego, Orange County. Paris is nowhere on the map. How do we get Paris on the map?
Great question. Well, first of all, I can tell you are a good politician. And I respect that. I've seen some good ones in my time, and you've asked exactly the right question to me or to anybody who is in state or national government. Because you're right. Very often, federal dollars, federal programs bypass cities like Paris. And part of what we have to do is really be clear about the criteria for getting those funds into the places that need them most. Like, as you said, you have a high unemployment rate right now. You have a high poverty rate. That, in my opinion, should qualify you for more help. Now, we have inner city urban areas. We have some suburban areas, and you're part of the big suburban sprawl. And we have some rural areas that are being left out, and I want to adjust the funding formulas so that federal dollars go where they're most needed. You know, when you're in a community that is kind of caught between two big cities like LA and San Diego, and as you say, people driving through, you've got to bring attention to yourself, but you also need to have leaders like the congressman, congresswoman.
All right, folks, we are going to take you now to the live event as promised in Culver City, California. Hillary Clinton is at the podium.
His or her hard work and talent will take them. And what I am determined to do is to not only knock down the barriers so we create more good jobs with rising incomes, we provide quality education starting in early childhood all the way through elementary and secondary education to affordable college and paying down student debt so we liberate young people in our country to be all that they can be, and that we do the work we need to knock down the barriers to quality, affordable health care. We have made so much progress. You know, before there was something called Obamacare, there was something called Hillary Care. And that's why I was so thrilled when President Obama passed and signed the Affordable Care Act, because we have got to make quality, affordable health care available to everyone, man, woman, and child. And I will do everything I can, not only to defend it from those attacks to repeal it, but to get the costs down, the premiums and the copays and the deductibles and prescription drug costs. And then I want to do something in two areas that I don't think we yet have been honest in tackling, and that's mental health and addiction. We're still not providing parity in treatment. We still haven't gotten rid of the stigma. We still don't do enough to deal with addiction. We learned just yesterday that Prince died dealing with his own pain. We've got to do more. Too many people. We're losing too many every single day across our country. So we have a lot of great work to do. We've got to do everything possible to provide a path for criminal justice reform, divert more people from the criminal justice system, end the era of mass incarceration, provide more second chance opportunities for men and women. I've already said I will introduce comprehensive immigration reform within the first 100 days of my presidency. This is not just the right thing to do. This is, for me, part of who we are as a country. It's consistent with our values. We are a nation of immigrants, aren't we? And I am determined that we will make the case and we will put together the votes to finally achieve this and bring 11 to 12 million people out of the shadows. They are working, their children are going to school. We also have to do more to help families balance their family responsibility with work. And for me, that includes paid family leave. It includes putting a cap on how much a family has to pay, no more than 10% of your income, on child care. It includes raising the minimum wage. 2/3 of all minimum wage workers are women. It includes guaranteeing equal pay for women's work. It includes protecting and defending women's rights to make our own health care decisions. Now, whenever I talk like this, which I've been talking like for about, 40 years, people keep discovering me, you know? I'm like an archaeological dig. Oh my gosh, she said that, she wrote that. Oh, in the 70s, the 80s, the 90s. I think I've been pretty consistent throughout my public life. So when I talk like this, Donald Trump says, oh, there she goes, playing the woman's card. Well, I'll tell you what, if talking about paid family leave, equal pay, women's rights to make our health care decisions is playing the woman's card, then deal me in. You know, yesterday in San Diego, I had the opportunity to just repeat what Donald Trump has said. I didn't make any of that up. I mean, it would be hard to make up. And by the end of working on that speech, even I was saying, did he really say all of this? Well, indeed he did. And I believe absolutely that he's not only unprepared to be president, he is temperamentally unfit to be president. He doesn't really have ideas. He just engages in rants and personal feuds and outright lies, something that our country cannot afford in a commander-in-chief. But I have to tell you, a lot of what he said about what's happening in our own country is as disturbing. His divisiveness, setting people against one another, we've all heard it. He is classic. But we have to stand against that. I do not want anyone here in our own country or anywhere in the world to think that what he says and how he conducts himself represents who we are as a nation. We have worked too hard for too long. We have come too far to let anybody turn us back now. And we are going to stand our ground while we seek common ground to solve the problems that face our country, to bring people together across all the lines that divide us. So we are going to defend human rights and women's rights and gay rights and civil rights and workers' rights and immigrant rights. And we are going to take on the gun lobby for common sense gun safety reform. So we have work to do, my friends, and you've just heard from some extraordinary women who have said what they feel, what they know needs to happen from their different perspectives. And I want to add my voice to theirs. We have to, starting in the California primary on Tuesday, send an unmistakable message. We are stronger together. We are going to work together for a better and fairer nation. And that's why I need all of you to send in those ballots that are sitting on your kitchen counter. Send them in today, send them in tomorrow. Make sure everybody you know who has a ballot sitting around sends it in. California votes in huge numbers, as you know, by mail, right? And so we need all of you to join with the hundreds of thousands of Californians who've already voted. And then for those who can't or haven't had time to do so, we need everybody to show up on June 7th. If all goes well, I will have the great honor, as of Tuesday, to be the Democratic nominee for president. Thank you all so much. God bless you. Can we get this taken down? You gonna do a picture? Yeah, I want to do a picture. Can we have that taken down? So yeah. So we're gonna do a picture and then I'll come out and shake hands, okay? Yeah. Got it? Woo! There we go. Whoa! Boom. Okay, we got it.
This is my
Guys, on the very, very latest that comes from this situation, taking now live to Burbank, California, where Bill Clinton is rallying for his wife.
Campaign I watched unfold in the Republican primary that is now being brought into the general election. Here's what you need to know. The Republican nominee is basically a harsher and often cruder and clearly more negative version of a debate that's going on all around the world. Why? Because all over the world, democracies are under stress because of economics and identity conflicts. That is, everywhere there's stagnant growth, stagnant wages, rising costs, increasing inequality, declining social mobility, and all these conflicts over diversity. In Europe, you see it manifest in the largest refugee crisis since World War II. And here you see it in all the kind of crazy things that are being said, mostly against immigrants today. So we have a choice to make. And that is whether we're going to lead our country and the world away from this kind of politics toward an inclusive future where we have less inequality, more upward mobility, and higher incomes because we work together and we value our diversity, or whether we're just going to try to build walls instead of bridges and accept the fact that we got an economy that doesn't benefit everybody, so we're just going to fight over a smaller pie. Now, America is in the best shape of any big economy in the world. We have 15 million jobs in the last 6 years. We have over 90% of our people with health care for the first time ever. In the last 3 or 4 months, finally, we've seen wages start to rise again for working class and middle class Americans. So what are we going to do? That's really what this election's about. It's about you, your kids, your grandkids, the whole future of this country. If I were 25 years old again, and I'd kind of like to be, just to see what's going to happen, and I got one of those magic lanterns, you know, and it genie pops out and says, you can live anywhere you want in 30 years, but you have to decide right now, I picked the United States in a heartbeat. But what we have to decide is, are we going to build a 21st century future or fall for this Make America Great Again line, which is basically, I'll give the economy you used to have. Well, first of all, that economy wasn't so great for half of us. It wasn't so great for African Americans, for immigrants, for women, for LGBT Americans, and for lots of other people. It wasn't so good for the elderly or for the disabled. It's not so good. We can build a 21st century greatness that includes everybody, but we have to make a decision to do it. Are we going to go forward together or divided? Are we interested in a future economy or trying to recover a past we can't recover that wasn't so great anyway? And do we believe in inclusive societies instead of divided ones? Do we believe in bridges or walls? Now, those are really the decisions. There are basically 3 reasons Hillary should be the next president, and Hillary should be your choice in the Democratic primary. One is she's got the right vision. She wants us to have a cooperative, inclusive future, inclusive economics, inclusive politics, inclusive society. Second, she's got the best ideas about what to do. And her ideas are paid for, which is important. And according to all the analysis, she's the only person you can vote for left who's actually told you how she's going to pay for this stuff, and the numbers add up. One of the things that I really like about California, and I think it explains why your governor and so many of your legislators have endorsed Hillary for president, is that this is a very progressive state that figures out how to actually get things done and make real change, not just talk about it. So what should the federal government do? First of all, we should create more good jobs in a way that creates far more opportunity for everybody. A modern infrastructure program. Winning the race with Germany and China to be the clean energy superpower of the 21st century. It's true that California has by far the largest number of installed solar panels, but it's also true that Germany generated 87% of its electricity on a day 2 weeks ago solely from the sun and the wind. 87%. So much that they actually had to pay people to use electricity so the system wouldn't be overrun. And in Germany, the sun shines on average about as much as it does in Alaska or London. But the technology is such that we can do this. So when Hillary says we're going to put up 500 million solar panels in the next 4 years, she hopes that will be low because it will create lots of jobs, fight climate change, and liberate us to pursue a different sort of economy that will lift everybody's incomes and lower their power bills. The third thing we need to do is to recognize, and this is important in California, that we can bring back manufacturing to America, but it needs to be modern manufacturing. And what do I mean by that? In modern, sophisticated manufacturing, you can pay people really high wages because the number one sources of cost are not labor anymore. It's materials, transportation, and energy. If we have lower energy costs because we're into clean energy, and we're the biggest market in the world, and we save the transportation, that means we can make anything here. There's a plant in Indiana. Listen to this. Indiana has 20% of the workforce in manufacturing. There's a plant in Indiana making Mercedes-Benz, a German car, and selling them all in China. Because they're really good at it. We can do that everywhere in America. And we need to invest more in science and technology because it creates more jobs. I'll just give you one example. I spent $3 billion of your money when I was president to sequence the first human genome. You can now do it for less than $1,000. You have gotten over $200 billion in economic investment in America from that $3 billion. That's a pretty good rate of return, wouldn't you say? Not so far south of here, San Diego used to be known as America's naval city. Today there are 700 computer companies headquartered there because there are 3.6 billion genomes in your body. No one can see them. So you can't do all this sophisticated work that's leading to real breakthroughs in cancer treatment, for example, without great computing power. And they decided, because they had a foundation there, founded by Craig Venter, who pioneered the private effort to sequence the genome, and all this government research money, that they would pour it into training people to do this work. We can do this everywhere in America, everywhere in California, everywhere in America, in small towns and rural areas as well as urban areas. So this is really important. And the final thing that Hillary wants to do is to get the government in the business of aggressively promoting policies that will lead the banks to loan money to small businesses again, because that's 20%. Listen to this. It's 2/3 of our job growth over the last 20 years has come from small business. Now, I like the Dodd-Frank bill that President Obama signed. It will prevent Wall Street from wrecking Main Street. I don't care what anybody else tells you. It's better than anything we've had for 70 years. And one of the reasons Hillary won even the most progressive wards in New York City in the last election and did 50% better than all the people said she was going to is that there they know there are 60,000 fewer people working on Wall Street today than there were before the crash. They know these banks are being forced to slim down. They know the government already has the power to break them up if they misbehave. But what we got to do now is to start people lending money the old-fashioned way to businesses in their communities. There is a law on the books that I enforced called the Community Reinvestment Act that says every bank in America that's got an ATM machine in the community has to consider people in that community for small business loans, for home loans. It's time to get that bill going again. And that's what Hillary wants to do. Now, but there's a second part of this. What she has called tearing down barriers instead of building walls. You can do all this, and a lot of Americans will still be left out unless you make sure we're all part of this economy. It begins with an education system that focuses in pre-K through 12 on the things that work. If Massachusetts, which has a lot of first-generation immigrants and a lot of poor people, it's not all college professors' kids, if it were a separate country, they would have the 8th best school system in the world. Not because they have lots of rules, not because they have lots of tests, but because they have focused for 20 years on what works everywhere, which is making teachers better teachers, principals better principals, and having cultures that fit the kids they're educating. She thinks since federal education money is only 7 or 8% of the total, we should emphasize that more. Not that there shouldn't be standards, not that there shouldn't be tests, but you can overdo this, and if you forget, you wind up majoring in the minors. The main thing is, do you have a good teacher? Is the principal good? Are the parents welcome in the schools? Does it fit the culture of the kids there? Second thing is, not everybody needs a 4-year degree to get a good middle-class job. There are unbelievable numbers of jobs requiring skilled labor today all over America for which the labor is not available. I think some of the most impressive things I've seen in this campaign are union training programs all over the country. This is one area where she spends considerably more than her opponent, giving people skills training and re-dignifying skills training in America today so that people who want to do that can get those jobs. Next, you have to make college affordable and the debt repayable for everybody. And her position, this is one of 3 differences in this primary that I think are worth exploring. It sounds really good to say, let's just give everybody free tuition at every public school in America. The problem with that is the plan requires 1/3 of the money to come from the states. I don't think California can do that. Even at Cal Berkeley, only 13% of their money now comes to the state government. I just don't think you can do it. There are 40 states that either can't do it or they have Republican governors and Republican legislators that won't do it. Under Hillary's plan, everybody would be able to go and graduate debt-free, and not just from public schools, but from smaller private schools that cater to middle-class and working-class families and first-generation immigrants, the historically black colleges and universities, all these groups, they should be included too, and here's the way it works. Everybody that needs free tuition gets it. If you need more, there'll be a huge increase in the Pell Grants. If you can pay a little something, you ought to. If you need to work, everybody can get 10 hours a week of work-study money who needs it. That'll hold down the cost of college and give income to students that will help them to cover costs. And then people that can pay their way ought to do it. The most important thing is, what about all the debt that's already accumulated? Listen to this. The average student debt's about $25,000 in America. But a lot of people who say went to medical school owe $200. The largest number I've seen is $400. And that, I got a letter, Hillary and I did, we got a letter together from a person whose wife was a doctor. So she graduated with $200,000 in debt, but she took all these public service-oriented jobs so she couldn't make much debt payment, and they kept rolling over and compounding the interest. And all of a sudden, she looked around, and 5 or 6 or 7 years later, all she'd been doing is helping people, and her debt kept getting bigger. This is nuts. So here's Hillary's plan. Simple. 1, a college loan is the only loan in America you cannot refinance. That's nuts. If you can, I talked to a woman the other day, 10 miles north of this little town in New York where we live, and I've been doing business with her for 10 years, and I knew she had a kid who just graduated from college, and I said, does your son have any debt? She said, yeah, quite a bit. I said, what's the interest rate? 9%. I said, do you have a home mortgage? She said, sure I do. Did you refinance it? She said, of course. Didn't everybody? I said, what's your interest rate? Under 4. This is crazy. A college loan is no less a lifetime asset than a house. Everybody in this audience today, listen to this. Everybody in this audience today who's under 30 has a legitimate chance to live to be 100 without the specter of Alzheimer's because of the progress we're making in biomedical research. Now, if that's true, and a lot of you who are over 30 are going to do that. If that's true, a college education is more of an asset for a lifetime than any house you'll ever own. So Hillary thinks you ought to be able to turn your debt into a mortgage. That is, give people 20 years to pay it off, and no matter how much they borrow, never pay more than 10% of your after-tax income a month, ever. And that's if you owe in the upper reaches. If you owe less, you can pay less. So you would get this option. You could pay it off over 20 years, and anything that wasn't paid would be forgiven. And you think about that. If we just did that, everybody could move out of their parents' house. Right? You can make a rent payment. Look at it. If you just did that and you wanted to do a job over here that you loved, but the job you have pays more and you think you can't make your loan payment, you could take the new job because your loan payment would go down with your income. If you wanted to go borrow money to start an organic bakery or some other small business, you're toast today. If you got debt, you have no credit rating. But you wouldn't be in troubles if this were the system, because if, like most small business people, you didn't make any money the first year or so, you wouldn't owe anything on the debt. This would release the energies of millions of young Americans so we could all rise together. We could have inclusive prosperity again. It would really matter. And she also has, in her plan, an opportunity for people who owe more or less than national average to get rid of it in a hurry. If you do 2 years in AmeriCorps and 1 year of any other kind of service-related work, over and above your income, you get $23,500 tax-free. Just throw it against the debt and get rid of the thing. Now, just think about this. This would bring a lot more people into the economic mainstream of America and do it in a hurry. There are other things we need to do. There are areas that are so depressed and have been for so long, people won't invest in them unless there's a dedicated amount of federal investment. She wants to dedicate 10% of all of our development funds to areas with really high unemployment and high poverty rates, and give a huge tax credit to people who will invest private investment there. This will work. We did this at the end of my term with a big bipartisan majority, by the way. And in the decade that ended in 2013, this bill was much more modest than what Hillary's proposed. In the decade, we had 1,000 projects that created 750,000 jobs, and 88% of the money that went into it said we did it because they gave us the tax credit to do it. And we're glad we did, because people in areas that have been left out and left behind can make money for the private economy and support us all. We've got to do this everywhere. You just can't turn around. If you believe in climate change, if you want to do something about it, then you have an extra responsibility to give those people that are stuck in coal country a way to make a modern living. If you believe in a diverse society, you have to recognize that the poorest Americans are still Native Americans living on reservations without casinos. And almost every one of them could be making a fortune a day out of the fact that the sun shines there and the wind blows there. There's something wrong in Wyoming, for example, where a billionaire, and I praise him for doing this, but a billionaire sets up this massive wind farm and sells the wind energy to California and is making so much money out of it he can afford to actually pay to build a modern transmission line where the electricity can be hooked up to something powerful enough to take it. Meanwhile, in Wyoming and in Montana and in the Dakotas, there's more than enough wind blowing and enough sun shining to electrify America, and because nobody has helped them build the infrastructure, they can't do it. They could sell it to you too, and you could make that 30% renewable energy standard here look like peanuts. You could go to 40, you could go to 50 if you had everybody working with you in California and around. Hillary wants to leave these people in the driver's seat, not in the back seat of America's economy, and that's right. That's the right thing to do. Let's talk about 2 or 3 other things. The most important thing we could do in this whole area is to quit fooling around with cheap politics on immigration and pass immigration reform. This is crazy. There are 11.5 million undocumented people in this country who are either in school or at work right now. They are living with 5.5 million other Americans who every day wonder, are the kids going to be kicked out of school? Are the parents going to be torn up? Will the families be divided? This is crazy. We have fooled with this long enough. And I think that it's really important that we do this. Hillary wants to make it a top legislative priority and try to get it through as soon as she can. We have got to stop doing this. One of the relatively few differences in the candidates in the primary, they voted together 93% of the time in the Senate. But they differed on 2 or 3 issues that are, I think, important. One was in 2007, George W. Bush had promised to sign an immigration reform bill that the late Senator Ted Kennedy was sponsoring, and the farm workers were begging for it. And there's only one person in this race you can vote for who supported that immigration reform bill, Hillary. She was for it, and you should be for her on account of that. Let me just say a couple of other things. There are some other populations. We need to get more of these young people out of prison that are there for nonviolent offenses and put them in the workplace. They need education, training, and they shouldn't be able to be discriminated against because they've been in prison if they go for a job interview. We need to recognize that it's abysmal that veterans still have a higher unemployment rate than the population as a whole, even though many of them are trained to do things needed to be done in this economy. But let's be honest. One of the reasons is that because of the rapid redeployments, carrying on these conflicts in Afghanistan and Iraq, we have a very high percentage of them that at some point in the first year or so after they come home suffer from post-traumatic stress syndrome. So Hillary wants us to make a major effort to modernize mental and physical support facilities for returning veterans and others so that they can work and get whole. And this is really important. It is wrong for these people to be wandering around out of work and out of the mainstream of life when with just a little bit of help and support they could make it. The same thing is true, by the way, of Americans with disabilities. The fastest growing consumer group in the United States of America are Americans with disabilities. But you cannot consume unless you've got some money to consume with. And every place that there has been a widespread commitment to hiring Americans with disabilities, they have better attendance rates, high productivity rates, and they do great for everything they can be properly trained to do. It is time for a major effort from the White House to put people with disabilities who want to enter the workforce into the workforce. She wants to push that. And let's not forget one other thing. There's been an enormous amount of progress in gay rights. But when 17 years ago, when I started trying to pass the Employment Non-Discrimination Act, I never dreamed that the Supreme Court would legalize marriage before it mandated equal employment opportunities. So now you got people who can get married on Saturday and get fired on Monday. It is time we said once and for all, if you can work, you ought to be able to work, and nobody should discriminate against you in the job market no matter what. And finally, the only thing that could have as big an impact on this as immigration reform is stopping America from being one of only 7 countries in the world, except for California, New York, and a handful of other states, that gives no paid leave. We need to have paid leave, equal pay, and affordable child care so all the women who want to be in the workforce and have children and responsibility can do it. Now, if you did this, believe it or not, you can pay for this in a fairly straightforward way.
All right, folks, we're going to jump out of
If we adopted what's called the Buffett rule that Warren Buffett's advocated, everybody with an income of $1 million or more has to pay at least 30% of their income in taxes.
This is what we do. We respond to emergencies. We have a great partnership with all of our agencies, all our other responders. We have 39 agencies that make up this air show. So you're talking about an emergency team, which is just probably second to none in the U.S. So we had an immediate response yesterday. We were on the scene very rapidly. Once it occurred, we had the fire extinguished. Our job is to get there, create a rescue path, and save and protect any life and prevent any future harm. Our guys did that. They partnered up with our mutual aid providers. It was in the city limits of Smyrna, so we automatically support them. They support us. It's one emergency response team for the show. So our hearts go out to those people. Our mission is to do what we do, and unfortunately, sometimes we do have to go to the bad as well as we affect the good. So at this point, I'm going to step back, but thank you for everything y'all done.
Thank you, Chief Johnson. I'd like to now introduce one of our performers, Mr. Michael Kennedy. He lives about 10 miles from here. He's one of our local performers. He flies the BT-13 Vultee vibrator right behind us for some closing comments.
I'd just like to say that the airshow community, we're a band of brothers and sisters, just as the military is. Many of us have been in the military before we've done this, and our whole goal is to honor those that have gone before. And unfortunately, we had somebody that paid the full price yesterday, and we all feel that deeply. I wouldn't want to say that I speak for everybody's emotions, but we do feel it. But the reason we will continue to fly is that we feel that we can also continue to inspire the future generations to fly and feel the freedom that you can only have in the flight. And I'll just say that me personally, my feeling is that we all have a journey. We don't know where that journey is going to go, but it isn't the end of the journey that counts. It's your final destination. Thank you. And feel the freedom that you can only have in the flight. And I'll just say that me personally, my feeling is that we all have a journey. We don't know where that journey is going to go, but it isn't the end of the journey that counts. It's your final destination. Thank you.
But I also know you adopted your children, and I honor you for it. And you need to understand there are children just like the kids you adopted that are swelling the ranks of foster care in America, and they're going to age out and be thrown on the streets and have their lives wrecked. It's terrible. You have to help us. And he said, why? She said, why is that happening? She said, because people are afraid to adopt children when they're not infants anymore. They're afraid they can't shape their lives. And they're afraid to adopt children with special needs because they're afraid they can't afford it. So she said, you're a Republican. Let's give people a whopping tax credit if they adopt non-infant children. And a bigger one if they adopt children with special needs. Then you got to give us enough government support to help these families adjust, and then to help the kids who will age out so they have a place to live, they can get training, they can get education. All I had to do was sign the bill. There was an 80% increase in the adoption of children after foster care. She always finds a way to do things like that. When she was a senator from New York, when a lot of Republicans didn't want to do it, she talked President Bush into giving New York City $20 billion to start again, to help the first responders, the second responders, people she knew would develop respiratory problems and cancer for years and years and years afterward. She worked with John McCain to make sure we took care of veterans coming home with traumatic brain injury. She worked with Lindsey Graham to make sure that we took care of veterans coming home who were in the Guard and Reserve to make sure they got the same health care regular military people did. They liked her fine then. When she was Secretary of State, she had to get 67 votes, a lot of Republicans. But the only thing that survives our effort to get along with Mr. Putin, the New START Treaty, which makes accidental or intentional nuclear exchanges far less likely with Russia. They're fooling around in Ukraine today. You know, it makes us a lot safer that we've got this. She got the sanctions on Iran. She flew from Asia overnight to Egypt and worked with the Muslim Brotherhood president of Egypt to stop the shooting war between Hamas and Israel in Gaza. The Republicans liked her just fine then. And when she left office, approval of the United States was 20% higher than it was when she became Secretary of State. And one reason was, appropriate to California, is that she understood that we cannot win this contest we're in, manifested in terrorist incidents, without the help of American Muslims who love freedom and hate terror. And that the idea of discriminating against people because of their religion is crazy. It is un-American, and it's downright dangerous for us. Look, the world is going through growing pains of our interdependence. But look at San Bernardino. Those people were converted over the internet, so you can build all the walls you want. You can't keep out the social media. You could spark a depression in America. When you get done building that wall across the Rio Grande, we could build a wall across the Canadian border. A lot of foreigners in Canada. You could build seawalls across the Atlantic and Pacific. We are now in depression. Then you could send the U.S. Navy to the Gulf of Mexico. Just keep everybody out. Then you have to send all the Air Force planes up in the air to keep anybody from landing. You still can't keep the social media out. We're either going to fight this battle together for what we believe in an inclusive society, in an inclusive economy, in citizenship that is empowering, not dividing. Or we're not. So I will say again, I don't think this is a close question. The two candidates in the primary voted together 93% of the time. Why have 90% of the people plus who served with both of them endorsed her? Why did the governor of California and most of the California Democrats in the legislature endorse her? Not because they're against him, but because they want to get something done and they think she is a real leader. Look. She'd been in public office a lot less. She only served 8 years as a senator and 4 years as Secretary of State. She'd been a change agent for 40 years. A great leader of the civil rights movement called me, was an old friend of mine, and said, after the Alabama primary, and said, is it possible what I read in the paper, that she got 93% of the African-American vote in Alabama? I said, oh yeah. He said, that's more votes than President Obama got, doesn't it? How did that happen? I said, because they believe past performance is a good indication of future leadership. When Hillary was in law school, you think about this crazy harpy image the Republicans have tried to cultivate. Now let me ask you this. So I met her 45 years ago, this spring. Here's what she did when we were in law school. She went to Texas to register Mexican-American voters whose families had been in this country for a century or more and had never voted, have been systematically excluded from the political process. She worked on a Senate subcommittee to help migrant workers. She spent a fourth year to work at the Yale Hospital and Child Studies Center on the problems of abused children and what could be done to define what was really in the best interest of the child and do it for them. Sounds like a crazy, over-ambitious person to me. Right? Then she gets out of law school, she comes to Arkansas and opens our first legal aid clinic in Ozark Mountains and gives all these people now who are the base of Mr. Trump's campaign their first access to the legal system to get protected. Then she started a group called the Arkansas Advocates for Family and Children. She brought the first preschool program we ever had anywhere in the rural South and most poor places in America from Israel. They taught children to be taught first by their mothers so they learned to read together, they learned to count together, they learned to grow together. This is before anybody had preschool. Then she headed our education reform movement, and a guy that said we had the worst school system in America when I came here running for president in 1992 said we had one of the two most improved systems. She did all that and she's never been elected anything. She is a walking change maker. And the reason sometimes things that bother you are right there before your eyes. Look, the reason the Republicans have been so mean to her in the last 4 years is they don't want to run against her. They're really smart. They're not dumb. They have a bad economic and social model. And they're stuck with trickle-down economics and this rhetoric that government would mess up a two-car parade. So when they come face-to-face with somebody who's actually done something for other people, it drives them nuts. So after all the wonderful things they said about her, the minute she led the State Department and might be a candidate for president, they tried to lower the boom on her. Now, you have to be a certain age to remember this, but 24 years ago when I ran for president and didn't win the nomination until I won in California on June the 2nd, 1994, they did the same thing for me. And I was running third in the polls when I got the election in California. I have got a copy of the front page of one of the San Francisco newspapers saying Bush and Perot in hot race, Clinton not a factor. Clinton's got 9 electoral votes. They wound up being 370 short. Why? Because in the end, when this is over and we unite this party and we go forward, you'll see more of what you saw yesterday. In the end, the problem with mudslinging, attacks with personal destruction in politics is it works in the beginning because there are lots of psychological studies that say if people tell 100 things on you and 100 of them are false, it still hurts you. Because that dominates political news. We live in an era where we love all that stuff, even though we hate it. It works till it doesn't. And guess what? It didn't then, and it won't now. So I suggest we say to our friends in the other party, we thank you very much for your advice, but we know why you're giving it. We're going to nominate Hillary. We're going to make her president because she got the best idea. She's the best change maker. And because we want a future of unity, not division. We want to build the next chapter in American greatness, not pretend we can recover the past. We're going to do it with bridges, not walls. We're going to build it on empowerment, not resentment. Look at this crowd. This is America's future. This election is your chance to claim it and give the whole world a chance to move away from a dark future toward a much, much brighter one led by you. God bless you. Vote. Send your ballot in. Thank you.